Hello, good evening, and welcome. I'm just going to call it SMB now. Let's
Yeah.
not bring light to the fact we're a day late every
You
week.
can paint onto those initials anything that you want.
Anything you want. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
anything you want.
Danny Ratledge and Dave Forrester with you to go through all of the action in the Super League basketball this week. Let's start on Friday night. Bristol Flyers 84, Cheshire Phoenix 88. Keedy Johnson's going to be out for a bit. Raphael Thomas Edwards was out for this game. I don't know. I say don't know if I notice. I'm sure you did notice, Dave, because this is the sort of thing that pricks your antennae up. But it was like the second or third play of the game, and Bristol seemed slightly confused, and three guys all cut to the paint, and Andreas was clearly not happy. The
Yes.
ball then went the other end. He's pointing at something. By the time it comes back the other way, Walsh is ready to check in. And I assume Tennyson was the one who'd gone the wrong way or done whatever.
Yeah, he was out quick, wasn't
He
he?
was out quick. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That
Yeah.
was.
I did a little double take actually when I saw Walsh was in the game. I had to do a little check back. Did he start? Because I didn't see the play that wound him up. But it's tough for them without Johnson, you know.
Mm,
I mean, Samuels is a good backup or a solid backup. I don't know if he's quite got to the point of being a good backup yet. I think he will do. Um, but he's very much kind of get the ball over the half court and play tenacious defense. And if you get any offense out of him, it's kind of a positive.
mm,
Um, which he has to be fair, they are getting some offense out of him, but it's still it comes in fits and spurts, which is fine if you're going to run a team that way. But they're actually a team which is based on scoring.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
so so it's difficult for them. Um, without the scoring power of Johnson, without anybody who really has a similar skill set to replace him.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, they kind of have to change a bit. And that's tough for players because players get get into we all call it an identity, and it's kind of a nebulous thing because nobody quite knows what an identity is. You can't put your finger on it and say
Mm,
their identity. But once you see enough games, the team begins to know what it is.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
They
yeah.
know what they are, even if it can't be necessarily gauged from the outside. And their identity is very much being, running up and down
Mm.
here and getting shots up. And they have a couple of prodigious shot makers, particularly Tennyson.
Well, when
Um,
he did come back into the game, he made three threes, so it looked like it had the desired effect. But Scott
yeah,
Grayson was scoring at the other end, and Cheshire moved out to a 21-30 lead.
yeah, and Cheshire just have that. Obviously, they don't have that kind of guy who is just there to set the tone.
Mm.
In fact, that was probably they probably do, but that's probably the guy who's the assistant coach now, Jack Hudson.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
That was
yeah.
Jack last year. He kind of slowed things down and changed the way they played a little bit. Well, Cheshire just go a pedal to the metal the whole time.
Mm.
And I think Bristol will be the same when Johnson is back. But losing Johnson's 16, 17 points and 7 or 8 rebounds and 4 or 5 assists is really tough for them
Mm.
with the way that they're built. You wouldn't suggest that any of their other guards are outside of Samuels or ball handlers at all.
No.
They played a little bit with Walsh at the point. And he tried, to be fair, when he tried to run what he's meant to run and get the ball, but it's not natural. So then you're losing a position, then you're taking somebody else out of their role to put
Mm.
them in. So you're constantly plugging kind of gaps. And the biggest gap plugger is Thomas Edwards because he plugs everything because he rebounds and he does all the stuff that
Mm.
when you're missing shots, he goes and gets the ball and makes a play, and he's not there either.
Mm.
So, a little bit tough for them. Cheshire played, I thought, within a comfort zone to a certain
Mm.
degree for much of the game and absolutely blew it out in the third quarter.
So it was 50-40, sorry, 40-54 at halftime, Cheshire. 2:30 into the third quarter, down 25 now. Cheshire started 16-2. They led 42-70, but
Well, they got
they were down 25, and Andreas made 5-on-5 off substitution, two and a
Mhm.
half minutes in, including Ibuka Ekwe's first action of the season. And
Mhm.
actually, he scored straight away, and then he hit a three. So it's again had its desired effect.
Yeah, well, your desired effect is not to be down 28, isn't
Well,
it?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mm. And the reason they were down 28 is because Cheshire basically started hitting their 3-point shots.
Mm.
and they made a few in the first half, but they kind of diced them with the spacing and the passing
Mm,
in particular. And somebody's gonna have to get to grips with Holden, find a way to guard Holden.
mm,
He is a problem for everybody, not because of his scoring, which is above average, but because of his passing, which is absolutely elite.
mm,
And they have this, they don't run that much, but when they put Holden down in the block in the post, particularly on the left-hand side, and he's passing over his right shoulder to the other side of the court.
mm,
They have guys there who are locked and loaded and who are letting it go immediately, primarily Christian and White.
mm,
And Holden will hit them relentlessly, moment after moment, play after play. And the crazy thing is, and the double advantage they have is if they miss, he's already got height advantage and he's a
mm.
great offensive rebounder.
Yeah, yeah.
So they're getting two shots at it. So you have to have the discipline to make him into a scorer. And to be frank, you've got to turn him over his left shoulder.
Mm,
Because if you let him go his right shoulder to score, he's got that little hook shot to the middle, which he makes with uh, regularity as well. So no, and it's all right me saying this, but if you only play a team once every 3 months, by the time you've figured it out,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
your game's gone, and that's the kind of thing that Cheshire are featuring because it's unusual, because it's different. You're always used to and trained to help off the weak side. You just cannot do that with
Mm,
Cam Horton. So it
mm,
seems they're going to have to get a grip on that. And then they've got this kind of rotating kind of set of wing players and shooters. So when they get going, they can be devastating very quickly, very spurtable.
mm,
When it gets ugly, it can still get ugly.
mm,
And Bristol, you're right about Egway because I saw him pre-season and he looked serviceable, certainly as an SLB player. And he must have been hurt, I assume. And he came in and he still looked like a mini Raf Thomas Edwards, to be honest. Um, and slowly they kind of just gripped in a little bit more defensively,
mm.
ran back a bit more. Cheshire made a few subs and played with their spacing a little bit, and Bristol, gave it a go.
Just before we get to that, I don't know if I've been sitting listening to you for too long, Dave. There was some random calls in the fourth quarter of this one at the beginning. There was one where White yanked the rim, and
Yes,
nobody asked for a goal to. Maybe it can't go in, but there was one at Leicester, by the way, which the net was wafted and that was
yes,
given, and
yeah,
it didn't
right.
look like it was going in. There was an off charge when he was the secondary defender with his whole foot inside the circle.
Yes.
There was Andreas. I thought Andreas should have at least got a warning, but probably a technical for at one point when he was complaining. But not only that, Chris Bourne stood up the whole time, and I know that's one of your pet peeves. They let an assistant coaches stand up whilst he's arguing, and there was just
My
random stuff going on.
Yeah,
I thought,
it kind of kicked off a little bit, and Bristol to a certain degree, and Cheshire to a significant degree are chaos teams. There's a lot of stuff goes on. It's very
yeah, yeah,
fast, up and down. There's a lot of
yeah,
players in
yeah,
the
yeah.
basket. Refs don't get much time to think. Um, the the coach, Bristol's a weird place because it's the only place I think in the league where there are no barriers in front of you if you're on the bench.
Yeah, yeah, I think it is. Yeah.
Every other place has got a better, but at Bristol, and it used to be at the Copper Box, but that's changed. So you're literally sitting, and there's no advertising barriers, there's no
Mm,
nothing. Um, which means that the proximity to the players and to the refs is even greater. You don't have to make your natural positioning on the court as a
yeah,
coach
yeah, yeah.
leaves you literally right next to them. Whereas, maybe you have to at other places you have to walk down the baseline or
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
kind of
Well,
sidle
it's
up.
even that thing of because there doesn't look to be a ton of room between the seats and the edge of the court. So even just standing up, whereas in most places you stand up and because there's advertising boardings, you have to walk
You have to walk, you
around
have
it.
to make
So
an effort. Yeah, you have to have a purpose. So that doesn't help. I mean, the second coach standing up, that is a pet peeve of mine because I don't think the ref should be bothered, to be
mm,
honest. I just think the ref should be more interested in dealing with the game.
mm.
And if somebody is, um, there's enough going on court without trying to
But
supervise.
this was whilst
Then-
Andreas was complaining about a call, and he stood there and chipping in as well. Was the
Yeah,
odd
well,
thing
now
to
that I
me.
mean, that would be normally sit down and shut
Yeah,
up,
yeah, yeah.
and it should be. Um, because,
I
the
don't think I'd have noticed it if it wasn't for the two or three things that had just happened beforehand, where I'm going,
yeah,
how did nobody know? Even the other team weren't even Bristol weren't arguing that it was a goaltend. I was thinking he
yeah, I
pulled the
remember,
actual ring, and
mm,
that basket is going like the whole thing is
yeah,
shaking. It was like
yeah.
random to me.
Uh, the same.
Anyway, Ulf with a fast break, 6:13 to go. It's 64-84. I think if I didn't know the final score, that might have been the point that I went, I've seen enough of this and turned it off.
Yes,
But Bristol, 12 in a row, 76-84 with 2:30 to go.
yeah.
Uh, Go on.
Go on. No, I
I
was just
was
gonna say, this was my, because obviously Cheshire are playing some of the other guys at this point.
mm,
Um, so I think Wild is playing and Ulf is
mm,
playing, and they're a little bit away from what their normal spacing would be. Those guys individually are fine on the court,
mm,
but it changes the way they are. They become kind of a more normal team.
mm,
And Austin, even Austin as well, because Austin's not really a shooter as well. But this was, fundamentally a fake comeback
mm.
until keep going.
Until 53.6 seconds to go. Sheffield with the steal, a pull up three, which you have to make, by the way. That's a terrible shot if it doesn't go
No, it's
in.
not. When you're down, no, when you're down seven with 53 seconds to go, that's as good a shot as you're going to
Yeah,
get.
I
And
guess.
with that.
I guess.
Any other time, yeah, maybe. But yeah, you're right.
It's 84-88.
You picked the point absolutely spot on. That was the point whereby I'm
Mm.
like, this may not be a fake comeback. What's going on here? Because, and I know it's hard being up 20, being up
Mm,
25 in somebody else's gym against a team that's got kind of scorers and shooters because you're constantly, as a coach, you're constantly trying to avoid looking at the clock,
mm.
right? But you know, you just all you want to do is get out of the gym,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and your players, okay, you've got to kind next player, next player, next player, but the players naturally just ease just off a little bit,
Mm,
and in contravention of that, the opposition will also play a little bit harder because they've got nothing
yeah,
to do. And more than harder, they'll play faster.
yeah.
There's
And
more.
they'll take a few more risks, like a pull up
If you,
three.
yeah, exactly. So there's more shots. So the game is
Mm,
still in edge. And as a coach, you're thinking, well, the speed they're playing, it changes everything. And this is one of those kind of moments where you get that kind of, oh goodness, where's this going when you made that
yeah,
shot?
yeah, yeah. So 36.4 seconds to go. I was in two minds here, Dave, so I'm intrigued to see which way you went as to whether this was a good foul or a terrible foul by Tennyson. Holden has the ball. He's guarded by Lewis. The screen is set by White, so they switch. So Robinson is now guarding Holden. Tennyson comes from the strong side, jumps to double team him, jumps in the air and fouls Holden. Now, my instinct initially was that's an awful foul because there's 6 seconds on the shot clock, and it's only the third of the fourth quarter, so you're basically giving them another 8 seconds to burn.
Yeah.
But the one thing that made me go, well, maybe, is Atwood was wide open in the corner, nobody within 17 feet of him. So he'd have probably made a three, but he could have gone all the way to the basket and dunked it. So maybe you're stopping a three from going in. What
Yeah.
was your?
I'm with your instinct. Thanks.
Yeah.
Don't think players think like that. I think players are just, the, you know, the last minutes, the minute. I mean, it's because maybe we get such a rotating cast of rookies in this league. Yeah. But the way that the last minute and a half is played, from an intellectual standpoint in many of these games is not overly impressive.
Mm,
You see these fouls all the time. Your team's down by two possessions, but it's a two possession game.
mm,
36 seconds, you're 6 seconds on the shot clock. If you can get the stop and get up and you get a score by maybe 20 seconds, you're down by two with 20 seconds to go, you're in the game,
mm.
right? And fouling at that point, and even doubling at that point, let somebody
Yeah, I
else.
wasn't sure about
Yeah,
that either.
yeah. If you want to double and try and steal it, that's fine. Maybe force a turnover, okay. But you can't. But you give up on the double. You give up the risk of a basket,
Mm,
right? But the last thing you want to be doing is giving them more time. The
mm,
time is in their favor.
yeah.
Give me another 80 and 40 more seconds.
White did a good job then of not turning the ball over in a double team and avoiding a 5 seconds. They eventually get it to Holden. He was blocked at the rim though by Robinson, so they get the ball back with 26 seconds to go. Um, Tennyson misses a sort of running three. I think he took it because he was trying to draw a foul rather than make a shot. I don't know what
I
you
thought he
think.
was fouled.
Oh, you thought he was fouled?
I thought
Okay.
he was fouled. I mean, I was watching it. I was astounded. If you watch it, the he goes drives to his right. Defensive player puts his hand on him.
Mm,
You know, it's not where he's not leaning in. He drive, and once he feels the contact on him, that's when he goes up to shoot it.
mm,
And I was astounded that wasn't called as a foul, because it's that hands on the dribbler that we see all the time.
mm,
Sometimes a lot less impactfully than that. But basically, if we see a lot of these calls whereby on the driving to the basket, whereby the defender's kind of got the bottom arm, the riding arm on the hip
mm.
of the offensive player, and they're
Yeah.
called automatically. On this one, whoever was guarding Tennyson, I don't remember, put his arm in his path and got him on his front. And unless it's a visual kind of
Illusion.
anomaly, a visual
Yeah.
illusion, and
Yeah.
the ref is there, he's about 3 feet away.
Mm.
I'm just wondering if Tennyson's body blocked him off from seeing that as Tennyson drove that way because he's
See,
behind.
the thing that got me on it was the fact that I don't think he was going to shoot it, and therefore he threw it up as if to try and whether the referee's thinking he's trying to con me here or something.
I think he
Uh,
threw it up because he felt contact. I don't think
yeah.
the ref felt the contact. I'll be
Mm.
honest. I think and I thought that call, what that non-call was, the end of the fake comeback, as it were.
It was Cheshire got the rebound. 13. I think they forgot to foul. There was 13 seconds. They lost seconds before fouling, and then that was the fourth. And then again, they still didn't foul. Sorry, there were 13 seconds left at
Yeah,
this point. They still didn't foul. Um, and I couldn't understand why. I thought you would foul in that thing. But I want to also ask you. I don't know if you paid attention to this bit because it might have been after the thing, but. Idle Rock, I thought at first he committed two violations, and I sent it to three people and said, "How is what he did not a violation?" And two of them came back and were like, "It's a blatant violation," and one came back and said the pass was deflected because it looked to me initially like he was dribbling it, he went to pass it, and he sort of hit it down, it hit the floor, and then he caught it. And then he started dribbling again, and I was like, "Is that not a pass to himself?" And then a double dribble if it was on top of
yeah.
that.
I didn't notice it, so I'm assuming I must have thought it
Yeah.
was deflected. There was one in the Leicester Sheffield game, which was actually quite similar as well. There was I think, a Leicester guy who caught the ball at the top of the key and went to shoot it, but it slipped out of his hands,
Yeah, yeah. And then
flew up
he
in the
caught
air,
it.
and he
Yeah.
caught it like
Yeah,
six
it was
feet away. And
Johnson. Yeah.
Johnson and the Sheffield guys were up for a travel, and I thought to myself, is that not a travel? But then again, I don't know all the rules, so I'm not sure. But if you move your
With
feet,
that one, I don't think it is because you're going up in a shot motion with that
so
one.
so
That
it's
was
so you can follow your own shot if it's a legitimate shot attempt.
it's the same thing as if you airball it and
Okay.
chase it, if it's a legitimate shot attempt, it's not a
Yeah,
pass to
that's a fair
yourself.
comment. Yeah,
That
yeah.
that, that
But
would
no,
be
I
that.
didn't. I
But this
didn't.
just looked super weird. And as I say, I,
I'll look
I
at it
wound it
now.
back, I wound it back, and I was like, what? How is that not elite? And nobody was complaining. Literally nobody was complaining. And I was thinking, what is going on here? And as I say, I'd sent it to three people. The first two came back and went, that's unbelievable. How did he get away with that? And the third one went, was it deflected by Sheffield? And I was like, oh man, I hadn't seen that. Even though I watched it about 10 times, I hadn't seen that.
I do think sometimes there is a something that happens is really unusual. It's very difficult as a ref to get your head around something if
Yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
not, if it's like a cow flying by, a six.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
What's that? That's a cow flying by. Well,
Yeah.
is it illegal? I'm not sure. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because about what I can't remember. I'm not. What? It just kind of messes with your brain a
And
little
then
bit.
and then Bristol looked like they were playing for points difference at that point as
Yeah,
well. And that sort of threw me. I know I'm the points difference guy
yeah,
banging on about it all the time, but I thought that was a little odd in game one when you're only down four. But
yeah. You got to give it a shot. The other thing, of course, is that this is the trophy semi-final.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Yeah, coming up as well. So it's kind of an interesting kind of first dibs at that.
yeah, yeah.
Um, yeah. Just
Maybe they were practicing the points difference for the
the
trophy
trophy
semi.
semi-final. I doubt it. The execution at the end isn't
Yeah,
hasn't overly impressed me. But yeah, Cheshire finding a way. That's
yeah,
probably the way to describe it at the
yeah.
moment.
Tennyson 14, Walsh, Lewis, and Robinson all had 12. They were 14 of 34 from two and 15 of 36 from three.
Yeah. That's
Uh,
basketball. That is Cheshire basketball being played by Bristol
yeah,
mostly.
yeah, yeah.
You know.
Uh,
Uh,
and I'll give you the reverse in a second. Holden 17 points, 8 assists. Scott Grayson 16 points. Kristen 15 points. They were 23 of 38 from two and 8 of 25 from three. So they
and
made enough twos to win, Dave.
they did, yeah. And I think, but a lot of that was in transition. And
Mm,
when they broke the game open, they broke the game open on the 3-point line.
mm,
At
mm.
the end of the third quarter, that's when they
Yeah.
broke the game open. That's actually when they're dangerous. When you have to take something away. And I don't think 8 of 25 is enough. I don't think you're taking away enough.
Mm,
I think any team that holds Cheshire at less than 23-point shots will beat them, or
mm,
can beat them, sorry.
mm.
I think it's a bloody hard thing to do.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, yeah. Let's go to Leicester. Leicester Riders 79, Sheffield Sharks 82. No Charobia. Congratulations on the birth of the baby.
Oh, I didn't
Uh,
know that.
Anderson was
Big,
there, but didn't.
I must have been, boy, big Mike. I hope that was a comfortable pregnancy. That's all I'll say.
Anderson was there, didn't play much, but he did play a little bit. This was really fun game. I really
Yeah, it
enjoyed. I
was a
really
fun
enjoyed
game
this
because it
game.
just flowed,
Yeah.
and we didn't have any of these. We had a game done in an hour and a half and a bit. And just and no nothing interrupting it unnecessarily. I can't consider what I'm thinking about, and it just allowed the teams to play.
And they were making shots as well. And in that first quarter, really the only story in the first quarter was Thompson getting those early fouls. Other than that, it was two teams making plays.
Yeah, it wasn't. It was to a certain degree a kind of it was North v South, obviously from the trophy, but it was a little bit of a clash of styles as well. But you had to look carefully to see that.
Mm,
Without Ocherobia and with Anderson effectively limited, they're a bunch of guards, Sheffield.
mm,
Even Groves is a three, but he's got the handles of a guard. Leicester are a lot more traditional. They've got their centre and then they've got their backup centre and they've got their four and they've got Zach Jackson is a big three man. Um, and obviously Leicester are in that situation whereby they've played 7 games against 3 or 8 games, but they play against primarily the same teams, and none of them have really been as small as Sheffield were.
mm,
Because you think about Bristol, may a little bit, but Bristol primarily play with Robinson or Smith in the middle,
mm,
Surrey and London, who are big.
mm,
Um, so it was the first time that they'd really seen, that kind of speed of game, and that's what made it difficult for Thompson, I think,
mm,
because it's a different game when you're having to guard Groves or even Clay, the new guy. I mean, Clay played some minutes, which allowed them to kind of match up at times. And he was pretty competent. But primarily, there are a lot of guards. Um, that said, Sheffield's defense still isn't great, I think I would say. They do give up shots. They give up, the 3 or 4 times in this game they fell for Abercrombie's pump fake, and when he already picked the ball up, didn't have a dribble left. He fakes over there, but he runs away and he stands there and shoots a three.
mm,
Was a little bit frustrating from a coach's perspective. It's like, you might want to guard him. If he's got
mm,
his feet set, and he's got that set 3-point shot, he's going to make it. And
mm,
what he wants you to do is to run away.
mm,
Um, and Sheffield have also got this thing going on whereby they've got a bunch of guards, but they're all quite good and they all need to play, and they haven't quite got enough minutes for them all. So I think Nixon came off the bench in this game. I might be
yeah,
wrong.
yeah, he did.
Um, you know, so you've got Matthews who's been scoring the ball really well. So he's going to play Atiba loves it, Routinho, because
Mm,
he does what he's meant to do and he's solid and he knocks down open shots and he moves the ball. Then you've got Chapman, then you've got Nixon, and then you've got Jeffries, who's probably the best shooter of the lot,
mm,
but isn't getting really many touches at the minute because a lot of it is going through Chapman. So if you're Sheffield, you've got to balance all that stuff. The game itself, though, was fun to watch because it was just two teams kind of going at it and making plays against each other.
mm. Sheffield had a 5-0 run to lead 35-43. Leicester with an Abercrombie 3, Jackson and 1 got it down to a 2-point game. Leicester struggled a little with the threes in the first half, but in the second half, Hunter, Abercrombie, Jackson, Johnson, Washington all hit threes, and they were 71-61 ahead with 7 to play.
Yeah, and that was ultimately the story of the second half because the 3-point shot is becoming we're becoming a little bit NBA-fied. I think Boston shot 54 threes last night or something, 14 or 54, something ridiculous. Or that might have been Charlotte or somebody. And the 3-point shot is beginning to have a kind of substantial significance in the game beyond what it already had, simply because of the numerical importance of it, obviously 50% more points. So when Leicester are making them, and they're making kind of shots you would expect them to make, they're making the catch and shoot threes, they're making the Connors three off the left hand dribble when nobody steps up to him. Johnson shooting it off the catch. Um, that's what these guys can. Jackson shooting it off the catch. That's what these guys can do. So they're making those shots, and they kind of almost blew the doors off Sheffield. But what happened in the next 4 minutes? And I watched the next 4 minutes back, which was just kind of the Sheffield comeback minutes. Um, Sheffield they had Clay off the court. They were playing against Leicester's closing lineup, which is effectively Hunter, Thompson, Johnson, Jackson, and Abercrombie, um, which is your standard kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lineup, if I can put it that way. Whereas Sheffield are playing with Routinho. I think you commented Routinho at the 4 and effectively Groves at the 5. Groves was a 46% 3-point shooter in college. I'm telling you something, Charles Thompson did not guard many guys like Jacob Groves in college.
No.
Right? That's Charles Thompson's matchup in that lineup. So when you look at, strategies and coaches and how you kind of try to manufacture an advantage, the guards are always playing. You're always going to have 2 guards on the court. You might have 3 guards. Could have 4 guards. May even have 5. You're never going to have 5 forwards on the court.
No.
Right? So it all comes down to what are you doing at the 4 and the 5 spot? And are you giving up size to take up shooting? And this game turned on Groves because in that period of time he missed a 3, which he was open for. He then made a 3 off Chapman's behind the back pass, where there's a little screen and roll with him and Chapman. Thompson's doing what he's always done, which is protect the rim for Chapman's penetration. Behind the back pass, Groves is wide open, knocks it down. I think that was a momentum changer you guys talked about on commentary, a really big shot. Next time down, Groves uses his length to get a block, comes back down the court, and there is again, they're just playing a 5-out offense. The ball is thrown to him, maybe this time, maybe the next time down. Thompson's half a step off him. Groves just made one from that spot. Bang, there's another one. Right? Now this is Thompson having to guard a 4-man or a 3-man as a 5. It's tough. So they go back down the other end. I think Sheffield are quite active at this point. They turn it over. Either Leicester turn it over, maybe they travel, or maybe Johnson got blocked or something of that nature. And it comes back down the court again. And this time, again, Chapman Groves in the screen and roll. And you guys commented on this one that there'd been a breakdown because Chapman just gets straight to the rim unchallenged. And the reason Chapman got straight to the rim unchallenged was because Thompson is out away from the screen, stopping them, worried about them throwing the ball back to Groves again. So by Groves making those 2 threes, he then pulls Thompson away from the normal screen roll coverage. Thompson's a rookie, haven't communicated it particularly well with the point guard and with Hunter, and suddenly Chapman's got a layup. And the area, momentum has changed. And unfortunately, what Leicester haven't probably had enough of is, and they're young in their season, is being tested offensively at that point.
Yeah.
Offensively, they got some threes, but they weren't great threes. They were okay, and they weren't probably they were okay shots, but they didn't get anything closer to the rim. They called for a couple of travels as well, and they didn't get much out of their point guard at this point when they really needed him to kind of step up. So they went kind of 4.5, 5 minutes without scoring the
It was a
ball.
16-0 run by Sheffield to put them 77 ahead with 4 to play. And then Zach Jackson, back-to-back threes, ties the game at 77-77 with
I mean,
2:23 to go.
that was it, wasn't it? Ultimately, you've got a group there of BBL, SBL, SLB rookies.
Mm,
You got Hunter, who's a true rookie. You got Abercrombie, who's a first time over from Australia. You've got Thompson, who's a true rookie, and you've got Johnson, who's an old but true rookie.
mm,
Um, so you've got to deal with these kind of games. You've got to get into them to get used to them.
mm,
And it was Jackson, because I think Jackson scored the next 8 points,
mm,
and he scored at that point. In the fourth quarter, he had 8 of their 11 points. I think
mm,
Johnson made it three early on, and that was about it. And Jackson did it because Jackson's one of the best five players in the league.
mm,
And the shot he made was just as tough a shot as any of the other guys had. The
mm.
first one in
Yeah, the
particular.
first one, yeah.
Because it was a well defended, tough shot. But he's been there before. He knew the
Mm,
importance of it. It was a little bit like Mackenzie last year.
yeah.
It's having been through the battles which helps you make those plays. It's not a fluke that it's him.
Mm.
Um, and it looked like he was going to be the one to kind of just drag them over the precipice.
So Clay with a tip in put back put them up 2. Jackson missed a 3. Groves tipped it out of bounds. Abercrombie underneath can't quite spin it in, but Jackson was there to tip it in 79-79. That's the 8 in a row you were talking
Yeah.
about. And
And
then 109 to go. Chapman drive, kicks to Rotino, extra pass to
the Matthews,
Matthews for 3, and it's 79-82.
at this point, I think they had Groves and Clay on the court as well. So Sheffield had used the smaller lineup to get back in the game.
Mm,
But Atiba didn't trust it enough to finish the game. He brought Clay back in. He wanted that extra bulk in, and that helped him because he got that offensive rebound. And in relation to his guards, Nixon made the shot at the end of the game last year there to in the playoffs.
yeah,
He had 40 points. He had the last shot against
Cheshire.
Cheshire. He's not even in the game at this point.
Mm,
So you got your three guards are Chapman, Routinho, and Matthews.
mm,
So that goes to show, and that's without Dreyfus as well. So that goes to show the amount of decisions that group is going to have a team have to make as to who's in the game at the right time and who's where they are and what their pecking order is. But I mean, Routinho made the right play. He made a great pass to Matthews.
yeah, he
Matthews
did,
was a
yeah.
pro. Matthews
He
knocked it
could
down.
easily have shot that himself.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, absolutely. But he threw it to the guy who's been knocking shots down for fun in the last couple of weeks.
Next time down, Jackson drives, kicks out to Johnson. This is one we talked about earlier, where the ball slipped out of his hands and then he got it back. Hunter ended up having to heave an off-balance 3 on the shot clock buzzer. Sheffield with the rebound, 43 seconds to go. 18.8 seconds to go. Chapman trying to draw a foul on a 3-point shot at the end of the shot clock. But in his endeavor to do that, he traveled first. So Leicester got the ball
I
back.
thought that was a good call.
Yeah, I
Good
did.
play.
Yeah.
He shifted his left foot just before he went up. So it was a kind of feet shuffle. That wasn't that hard a call because you see his feet kind of shuffle, but it's still a good call to make.
Timeout advanced the ball. Jackson ends up with Clay on him, looks to drive. He's fouled on the floor. Next possession, Leicester really kind of went nowhere. Jackson ended up slipping over, hell ball, 3.5 seconds to go, and a timeout. And then Jackson with a tough 3 on the buzzer back on. You wouldn't be 100% surprised if it didn't go in, but it wasn't an easy
Type of
shot.
shot that if it's not going for you, it gets banked in.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
That one goes in off the bank when everybody goes mad. And you think, oh Jesus, we've got to try and win again.
yeah.
I thought Clay's defense was really good at the end.
Mm, yeah.
He has Defoe's kind of dancer's feet. His feet
Mm,
are quick. It's never about how big they are, how wide they are. It's how fast their feet move. And he was able to stay in front of those guys and defend them like he was defending for his life on the 3-point line.
Well, if
Kind
you
of,
think about it, Leicester essentially had 3 goes at it in 18.8 seconds to go, and all they came up with was a tough shot at the end of the
yeah,
18.8.
but that kind of points to maybe the one thing that, way back probably about 4 weeks ago when I was kind of looking at Leicester and trying to figure out what the strengths and weaknesses were. The potential weaknesses off the dribble, getting something off the dribble right at the end of games and that because it didn't get much at the rim at the end of this game in the last fourth quarter. Really got a lot of threes outside of Zach Jackson. Zach Jackson can create for himself. Zach Jackson can make plays. I get that. Jalen Hunter's a rookie,
Mm,
so he is going to have, and he's come up against some proper some pros. And Chapman's been out 3 or 4 years, and playing and plays. Nixon's been out 2 or 3 years as well, and he's going to come against more against these guys when he comes up against Jordan Taylor, etc. And he's kind of a screen roll guard, but he's not your kind of head down, get to a spot, rise up and shoot it type of guard. He's
mm,
more your crafty guard. Yeah. Um, with Wright and Johnson, Ethan Wright and Spencer Johnson playing the two guard spot, there Johnson's got a little bit more off the dribble than Wright, I think, but they're both primarily shooters.
mm,
Yeah. Abercrombie is primarily a shooter, and Thompson isn't in there to score the ball in reality. You know, he's going to help you at the offensive rebound. He'll have plenty of games where he's double guy, but he's not the guy you're really going to throw the ball to with 2 minutes to go to get a bucket.
mm,
So that kind of leaves him just a little bit short. And I wonder at some point if Leicester will end up going a bit smaller at the end of games. And what I mean by that is adding in an extra guard. Um, be it, I mean, Bowman, I don't think Bowman was playing this game, was he? Maybe he was, I can't remember. Be it Bowman, be it Washington, whatever, to give them a little bit more off the dribble, maybe play Abercrombie at the five and stretch the defense out and give him a bit more spacing. So I thought when Sheffield really got into it defensively, and I think there was a play when Chapman blocked Jackson as well
mm,
in the post, which doesn't happen much. You know,
mm,
you look at it, you think, okay, right, these guys are into it now. Didn't think Leicester quite had the answers for them because they were held to at that 71 point mark. You know, they scored what 8 or 9 points the rest of the way. And
8 points in the last 7 minutes.
that's all Zach Jackson.
Mm,
They got
yeah,
nothing out of anybody else, so
yeah,
nobody
yeah.
scored the ball. And you're going to have, I think, against the better teams, they're going to have other guys stepping up. Now, as I say, that might just be the first time that it's been got really tough for some of those guys, and they've got to see it, and it'll happen
Mm,
as they get more used to it. But I'd like them to have a little bit more off the dribble to kind of get cheap ones, get easy ones, because they got nothing in transition either in that time.
no, no.
So yeah, it was a fun game. It was
Mm,
a fun game, and watching yeah, and Claire was interesting.
mm,
But he was pretty good defensively, which is the first thing you look at for a big guy.
mm. Jackson, 20.7 rebounds, 3 steals. Abercrombie, 16 points. Hunter and Johnson, 9. Matthew, 18. Chapman, 14.6 rebounds, 7 assists. And Groves, 13. Let's go to Saturday. Surrey 89ers 92, Caledonia Gladiators 83. Hughes didn't play. I didn't hear why, if it was just a coach's uh, decision or not. Um, this game was not quite at the level of the previous one, I think it's
It
fair to
really
say.
wasn't. It was Drew Lasker tweeted it looks like 8v9, and I was trying to think of something clever to say, but other than yeah, actually you might be right.
Mm.
Um, neither team, played with an abundance of confidence, you would probably say.
No, Surrey started well. Their points per quarter, I looked it up on Saturday. Their first quarter is way ahead of the rest of their 4 quarters, and they led by as many as 8 with that good start.
Yeah, well, obviously Jalen Ray's over his breakup
Mm.
because
Yeah.
he came out and he made shots and got to his spots, and he's a really talented player. So
Mm,
so that really helped them. And you know, Caledonia have gone from playing Trevon Barnes as basically a four-man for the first two-thirds of the games they played. Now suddenly he's a starting five-man, having had a great game in France and dropped 27 points on a
mm,
Pro A team on Wednesday.
mm,
He kind of played this game like, he was more likely to be getting the job off his game on Wednesday night than he was off a game at Surrey on a
mm.
Saturday.
Yeah, yeah, pretty much.
And that's the thing that some of these teams who are playing European games have had to deal with. Newcastle had to deal with it last year.
Mm.
The players who get up for games whereby, there's career benefit. And it's
Yeah,
not
yeah.
not even a tangible thing. It's not like a player is thinking, I'm not going to try today.
Mm.
It's just the level of mental commitment to it that's very difficult to kind of maintain over a 60
Yeah,
game
yeah. Yeah, yeah.
relentlessly. Only the best can do that, you see. And so there was a little bit of that going on with Caledonia as well. But DeBose wasn't there again either.
Mm.
And they are offensively challenged without Dubose, I'm afraid they really are.
Well, Barnes and Whelan got them ahead in the middle of the second quarter, and despite some unbelievably bad turnovers by Surrey, Ray had them
Yes.
44-43 ahead after a couple of inbound ones that are just like, oh my goodness. Um, Third quarter has always been Surrey's worst quarter so far this season. They've had 12 points in three of their seven third quarters so far. They've not scored 20 in any of them. But in this one, they had 12 points in 3 minutes and 9 seconds. And midway through the quarter, they led by 11, 61-50.
Yeah, just on that before we get to that, last week I said it was a bit harsh on young Parkinson to put him in the game halfway through the third quarter when you were down 20. He was going away from, but he got in the game in the first quarter today, this game. He played early, which means he's in a rhythm. He can play for the rest of the game, you know what I mean?
Mm,
I thought that was good. Um, which he's still without Lawrence. So if he's going to be your guard, then you got to let him play. You can't just kind of leave him out there. Um, they have a degree. They do have a degree of offensive competence about them. They're a dangerous team insofar as, Gooden can score, Ray can score, Steele will score when you fall asleep, Theo will score if you fall asleep with him in the corner. James went for 17 points in the first half against Leicester recently,
mm,
but so he's on and off, and and the Delican is kind of solid and finishes around the rim quite well. Um, so that I do think there's something in the fact that they're starting. The reason they're scoring points, particularly in the first quarter, is that the starting five is quite cohesive and quite explosive. In this game, it's difficult to look at Caledonia without thinking it ain't right.
mm.
Everything, nothing is right. The body language ain't right. We haven't got to. There's a couple of very dubious on sports like fouls in this game, by the way.
Oh,
We didn't get
oh,
to
yeah.
that.
The one against Malcolm, and was it in the second quarter? I can't remember.
Yeah, something like that.
I can live with that. But the one against Ray at the end, I have no idea
But
what
I
that
can't live with
was.
one against Malcolm. I'll tell you why I can't live with it because there was okay, it happens once a game, and okay, it's very rarely
Mm,
called. So that's happens. Consistency, inconsistency.
mm,
You're never going to get absolute consistency in those calls because every call is different in different
mm.
circumstances. What I can't deal with in relation to that call was that it took three referees a minute and a half to make it,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Just
Because
call it
you
or
know,
don't. Yeah.
because bottom line is one, there's a referee stood next to it who's called a foul. Was it a play at the ball? Answer:
Mm,
if it wasn't a play at the ball, it's unsportsmanlike.
yeah.
Two, lead ref was going back the other way. Was he the last man?
No.
Answer was no, he wasn't the last man. There's not unsportsmanlike. Ergo, that's two questions for
Yeah.
two different refs. You don't need three refs standing there nodding around for a
Mm,
minute and a half because what that indicates to me is that someone's had their mind changed.
mm,
Basically, it doesn't take that long. It can't take that long. They're the only two things you need to answer. You need to
mm,
ask. And there's a danger that the conversations that they have when they are that long, they become self-perpetuating.
mm,
Beg your pardon, self-fulfilling prophecy.
mm,
We've talked about it so long, we're going to call it,
mm,
because otherwise we wouldn't. And I just thought that was when as a coach, when you're on the sideline, and I was never really bothered about good calls and bad calls, or the obvious egregious type of how did you miss that type of thing.
yeah, yeah.
But you want to have faith in the sharpness and the decision making of the refs, right? And so it would always, for me, it would always be about how are they making are the calls being made decisively?
Mm,
Are they being made? And if you ask the question, have they got an answer?
mm,
Do you know what I mean? It's like, you know, Ed, what about that? No. No,
mm,
no, or that shot clock. No, he got it off in time or something like that.
mm,
No, it's when the kind of you get lost in that degree of kind of three referees making a call, which is doesn't need three referees to make,
mm,
and you're thinking, well, who's in charge here? What is going on? And it doesn't breed much in the way of confidence. So, and I thought it was a bad call anyway. I mean, I
mm.
think if that's in sports, and like that's fine, but they haven't called them all year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And just because it was near the sideline doesn't make it any different,
Mm,
you know? So yeah, so it was that, and then yeah, the one on Ray at the end there where he kind of meant to have pulled his arm away or something like
mm,
that. There was one on actually, there's one on the Eagles in the European game on Tuesday as well, which, they went to the monitor to look at, which I wasn't over impressed with when kind of the car who clamped the guy's hand as he was trying, or kind of clamped him on the wrist as he was trying to shoot the ball
Mm.
because he didn't let go quick enough to call
Yeah, that's
like
really come in the last couple of years where
that's it.
they're a lot stricter on that for some reason.
It's like,
I don't, to me, I don't think it's worth being stricter on, but
no, I mean, ultimately, if you foul them, then I don't understand the kind of the imperative not to foul him hard enough to let him get a shot.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know
yeah,
what I mean? It's like, okay, I fouled you. Okay, I made a mistake, but I'm not going to let you shoot it. I mean,
yeah,
that's
yeah. That's the
whatever.
whole
But
point of fouling him, isn't it?
yeah, that's right. And if it's close enough whereby the initial impact was for a play on the ball,
Mm.
then well, unless it's a second foul afterwards,
Yeah, yeah.
which is
I mean, there's one or two where you sort of like he's going up and you grab the arm and you pull it
yeah.
down. But to me, the
If you-
referee,
anything above the elbow, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
fine. But anything on the wrist, I mean, give me a break. But anyway, yeah. So I wasn't overly impressed with that. And yeah, the one on Ray at the end was all a bit bizarre. It was kind of smacked a little bit like a makeup as well.
So
Um,
just before, because we kind of missed a bit out.
yeah,
A wheel and a three late third quarter. Malcolm wanted to start the fourth quarter. It was down to three. He started to worry about ghosts of collapses past. But a Brown three, a Delican two scores. They were back up 12, 79, 67, and we've kind of got to the end with that Ray foul. It wasn't the cleanest closeout, but they did close it out.
well, they did, but there was. I mean, there's times where 2 minutes to go, they're down eight, and they're leaving
Mm.
Patrick Whelan wide open.
Yeah, that was unbelievable. And to me, the wheeling thing was egregious for them. And then on the inbound, they've got Caledonia had a double team with
Yeah,
17 seconds on the shot clock and commit the foul. And the ball's in the backcourt. It's like just hold him up. You might get an 8 second violation.
yeah, yeah, and I suppose it wasn't a very well played end of the
No,
game.
yeah.
Caledonia. They don't look, it's difficult to see how they continue the way they are.
Mm,
It's people, I mean, at this moment in time on the games that you've seen in so far in the trophy, and given, the level of talent that Manchester have, you kind of throw away their trophy record,
mm,
right? Then Surrey are probably, particularly without Lawrence, um, the team that you'd expect to beat the most on
mm.
just on what's on the floor.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay, and that's not knocking the guys they've got, but it's more about they're running Parkinson and Cholovinskis um and they don't have Lawrence and Hunt's just coming back to fitness and all of that stuff. So they're struggling a little bit with their bench.
Mm,
And Caledonia have a deep bench. They got 11 players, albeit they got Patrick Whelan, who's one of the top five players in the league. I'm probably going to say that about 10 guys tonight, by
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
way. They got Patrick Whelan. They have enough physicality and quickness you'd have thought to shut down teams.
Mm,
You'd have thought that's the way that they're built to be, and they're not doing it.
mm,
Ultimately, defensively, they're nowhere near where they should be. Offensively, they're not built to be a powerhouse offensive team. The way that they built and the stuff that they run. But you just think they're going to be in transition. You just don't see the faith and you don't see any faith in them. So
mm,
I think if the boss isn't going to be there, they have to replace him. That's a matter of that's an absolute given. Um, they then they've got to decide whether they're going to continue the Fag Bentley experiment on the wing.
mm,
That's hard because they're getting very little in the way of production out of him or Onwas at the moment. So
mm,
that's the three spots giving them very little. Stuckman is basically a true four who's made some shots and perfectly serviceable. But Barnes is out, and Barnes is out there playing the five, shooting a lot of threes for a guy who's shooting mid-20s.
mm,
And then Ali Hodzic hasn't started, whereas last year he would start and Moore would come off the bench. But now it's sometimes Hughes starts, now it's Barnes starting. Um, I'm struggling to see a coherent vision in it all
mm,
at this point. Um, Hill is kind of in and out.
mm,
Um, he makes plays, but he also kind of maybe loses rhythm, maybe gets a foul, and then you're hoping that the Scottish guy's gonna kind of carry you over the edge, and that's hard in this
mm,
league. That's hard. So I think losing this game the way they did, if that isn't a reality check,
mm.
forget about beating Ludwig. You can't live off your glory. Forget about beating Ludwigsburg. in a game which it hasn't helped you qualify.
Mm,
At the end of the day, that might have been a glorious moment, but you've got a long, long season ahead.
mm,
A lot of travelling. This week, they've got a home game against a Kosovan team on Wednesday,
mm,
they're off to London on Friday, and
mm.
then they've got to play
Back for
Newcastle at home
Newcastle. Yeah,
on Sunday.
yeah.
This is not a fun um, structure, a fun schedule if you're not enjoying playing,
Mm,
or if you're not giving the impression of having fun, or,
mm,
and you just don't get that.
mm,
So, at this point in time, you think something has to give there. That's all I
mm,
would suggest. Something has to give. They can't, they can't expect to keep doing the same stuff and get different results
mm.
with that.
Ray, 27.7 rebounds. Gooden, 17.7 rebounds, 5 assists. James, 7 rebounds. I've got 7 rebounds, so obviously I haven't got his
Mm.
points down. He must have scored something. Whelan, 22. Stuckman, 17. Ali Hodzic with 12.
Yeah, that Ray thing is a big thing. They brought him to be a scorer.
Yeah, yeah.
They need him to score, to have a shot in games. He has to go for 20. He has to be a 20-point a game scorer in this league for
Mm,
that team as currently constructed to have
mm,
a chance.
mm. Let's come to Sunday. London Lions 89, Newcastle Eagles 79. So this game when I got home wasn't working on
All right.
DAZN. As of this morning, it still wasn't up on Synergy. As of tonight, it wasn't on Synergy. It is up on DAZN now if anybody does want to watch it, but I only found that out 5 minutes before
All
we
right.
press record. So I've seen bits of the first half, Dave, and that's about it of this one. But Rice setting his stall out early on 7 points in an 11-4 London start.
All right. Came in, to use the phrase, gave Newcastle the business.
Mm,
He looks, I mean, Bozic referred to afterwards in his interview. He looks slimmer.
mm.
Obviously, he's back from his hamstring, so he's had a couple of games to get used to it. And he just came out and he looked like the best, not just top
Top
five.
five.
Yeah, top five. He looked like, he was top one or two
Mm,
in the league. He just came out, he destroyed Newcastle had that problem whereby Aaron Aiken's a little bit small to guard him.
mm,
The way that Rai used his body, Knight not strong enough to guard him. Should be really, but not strong enough to guard him.
mm,
And Rai is just so quick and nimble and smart in the way that he uses his body, in the way that he gets the ball in the right areas, rebounds when he needs to, finishes well. Um, he just gave a few Newcastle guys who probably haven't really seen him play much,
mm,
gave them a kind of like, I'm here, I'm Rai, you
mm,
know. On top of that, it's kind of, if you look at the point that the teams are at different differential parts of their season, because London's ninth game, but in reality, it's probably their fifth
mm,
real game where he's had his rotations, he's been moving together. It's probably Rye's second game
mm,
where he's been ready to play. Play the first couple, and he was injured for a bit. Um, so they are really on the upslope at the moment of their season and kind of rising. You can see it, they're getting some belief in each other. The energy is there. They're not flying around. They're not playing other games at all. Newcastle a bit different. Newcastle now in their 12th game already. They've lost, and just like Bristol, beginning to have a little bit of an impact.
mm,
Maybe you can get away. Maybe you can't pencil Defoe in for too many minutes because he's 40, but he goes down. But then Ward Hibbert goes down on a fairly free incident. Ward Hibbert's probably been their most important player this year, if not their best, but certainly the most important. So Newcastle are kind of in that kind of zone whereby they're trying to get through to the next window
mm,
because they've not really replaced the point guard. Bynum hasn't really quite settled yet, and they're kind of going on the basis of the guys who built a cohesion, but those guys are reducing in number, so that's impacting them. And London just started off with a ton of energy,
mm,
and their lineup was really good. And if we actually, to be fair to Newcastle, who had to bring a Coro in the starting lineup for the first time this season, and if it wasn't for Del Pesh early scoring the ball in a way which is, we really haven't seen that much of with him. He had
mm,
10 points in the first quarter.
mm,
The game could have got out even quicker than it did.
mm.
But Rye was awesome.
It was middle of the second quarter. Rye with 9 in a row, a 14-2 London run put them out to 44-25. At the half, Eagles were 0 of 7 for 3. Rye 10 of 11 for 20 points at
Yeah, he
halftime.
he just dominated them.
Mm.
And what I will say is probably for the first time this season, in the middle of the second quarter, Newcastle just cracked just a little bit insofar as they went away from the tempo. They weren't meticulous. They started shooting early shots, or kind of that get that 15-point deficit back in one
Yeah,
shot.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. And that just because that's not the way they've been playing. That fed into London's fast break a little bit and it got London going. And they needed a recalibration at half time, basically. And they got back to about 11 or 12 by half time. But they need a recalibration. I mean, anybody shoots 10 of 11 and a half, you've got a problem.
yeah. They had a 12-2 run to 9 points. And then at the end of the third quarter, Okoro had five in a row to make it 61-57. But London pushed it back out to double figures at the start of the fourth quarter and
Well,
made it safe.
I mean, this is the thing, the one thing I was quite chuffed with as a fan watching Newcastle is that they not only did they not give up, they got a bit chippy about it as well.
Hmm.
Certainly Okoro and probably Alan Aikens and even maybe Delpesh a little bit have that kind of chippiness about them. It says we're coming here to win, we're not coming here to glad hand and
Mm,
kind of shake hands with you and dap you up and all that type of stuff because you're London. And Okoro, another one who's now a top five player in the league.
mm,
And I think to be, I did think of it before. I think I had Rye, Whelan, Okoro, Zach Jackson, and Cam Holden, but Chapman might be close from Sheffield as well. So kind of one player from each of those kind of five teams
mm,
that made the trophy quarterfinals, semi-finals, and Sheffield who nearly did. Um, and London, obviously Rye from London as well. So
mm,
that's it. But Okoro was as unguardable as Rye was. Okoro became unguardable,
mm,
because he just he was able to get to the rim each and every way that he wanted. And when they sacked off him, he pulled up and he knocked down threes. Like he played like a kind of a SLB Donovan Mitchell.
mm,
You couldn't get anywhere near him.
mm,
And he kind of with a bit of defense and London getting a little bit sloppy. He got Newcastle back to a certain degree, but London got some serious talent there that wasn't overly exposed, and Brisker made a three. Newcastle defended Delaire abominably the whole game, I
mm,
thought. The guy's shooting 1 of 19 from the three-point line, yet he gets 11 foul shots on drives.
mm. Yeah, yeah.
I mean, no, he made all 11 to be fair to him, but he's got that advantage of being able to get to the rim in kind of one dribble, two
Mm,
long and those long steps are quite slow steps, so they kind of invite contact.
mm,
And he's got good body control to get the contact and finish. Well, for me, Long and Knight to a certain degree, they were playing too close to him and they let him get his shoulder past. And I thought that was mentally they weren't quite there.
mm,
And despite the fact that Newcastle never really let go, London you never really thought they were going to make the run they needed to make.
mm,
Part of that was personnel to a certain degree. Newcastle basically played six, only had six, and then Bynum played maybe 12 or 13 minutes, maybe a little bit more. And Kennedy played 2 minutes. But when you look at the numbers, London starters played the same amount as Newcastle starters.
mm,
They all played about 30 minutes. Taylor played the same as Spencer. Knight played the same as Rye.
mm.
It's just that, Rye outplayed Knight. Probably Okoro outplayed Brisker, you would say.
Mm.
But Dallaire was the X factor, 19 points on very few shots.
Rye with 31. Speaking of very few shots, 14 of 18 for 31 points, seven rebounds, six assists. Dallaire 19, Brisker 16, Okoro 35, Delpesh 14 and 10, and Alan Ikens 13.
Yeah.
Let's go to another fun game. I was
This
following the
was a
fun
fun
games
game. Yeah,
around.
this was almost worth postponing a podcast for this one.
Yeah, yeah. Cheshire Phoenix 87, Sheffield Sharks 86. Anderson did not play in this one, but Archirobia was back. White made a three on the first play of the game for Cheshire, but then Chapman helped Sheffield to 17 straight points to lead 17-3, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, Sheffield have a yeah, I'd say we have an offensively explosive group, and Defensively, I think you would say they are competitive and they actually match up the way they were playing. They matched up very well
Mm,
with Cheshire's starting lineup because they had the quickness on the perimeter to handle. And they've got,
mm,
Chapman is a big guard, so he's probably better than most at defending Holden. And Cheshire played on Friday night, a good winner were, and they weren't quite on it. And because the possessions turn over so quickly in Cheshire, you know, a team that's not on it, can give up a 10-0 run or a 12-0 run very, very quickly. And Sheffield came out and knocked down shots, and there are times that they look really, really good.
Well, I'm just looking at it. What was it? It was 80. They had 84 points with 6:13 to go in the Bristol game. So they scored 4 points in 6 minutes, and then they scored 3 points in whatever it was,
Yeah.
5 or 6 minutes there. So in 11 minutes, 11 consecutive minutes, albeit 2 days
Apart.
apart, they scored 7 points and gave up 37.
Yeah, so it's yeah. Yeah, so we won two games, so what?
Yeah, yeah. So what?
You know, um, yeah, I think we just have to kind of mark that up to part of Cheshire's character.
Mm,
And whereby in Cheshire, a 20-point lead is a 10-point lead in most other
mm.
places.
Yeah, yeah,
Either way,
yeah, yeah.
either way. Because it can turn over so quickly because they are both putting up a lot of threes and they're moving and they're going really quickly and they are dynamic in transition off stops. Kristen running the floor, Austin now running the floor. Um, and not only are they dynamic in transition, they also get the trailing three in transition.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
get there and caught. If you're not matched up, you can throw back to Skylar. So
Mm,
you've really got to match them in transition and not throw the ball away.
mm,
Um, the other way of doing it, of course, to stop them in transition is to have them pick the ball out the net.
mm. Yeah.
And that's what Sheffield did for about
So
30.
Sheffield did. Yeah, they had a 13-0 run around the first quarter break. They led by as many as 23, 18 to 41 after 30 minutes. And Ben was just in and out trying to find a lineup that would work. Eventually, he did. Kristen Scott Grayson helped them to a 16-3 run and a bit of a foothold in the game at only down 10.
Yeah, but it's the thing when you're playing at Cheshire, it's not the 16 because they're going to get them.
Mm,
If you hold Cheshire to 85, if you hold Cheshire to 85, you've got a chance of beating them.
mm,
If they're up in the 90s, it's going to be really, really tough.
mm,
Because you're basically having to match them shot for shot, and teams aren't built for that.
mm,
That's not the way that they're playing. So this is the time to start now. Sheffield are still kind of in and out of their identity. They've just brought a new big guy in. They've got all the guards I was talking about, so their identity isn't fully formed yet. Are they going to be small, up and down Chapman's team? Are they going to be um,
And they've
Matthew
had injuries to sort
take
of
up?
throw
Yeah,
in
yeah,
and
yeah, exactly.
to find it's hard to find that identity if one guy's out for a couple of games and then another guy
Yeah,
comes in and
are they going to build around Jamel with his
yeah,
no assist plus 20, or are they going to
yeah,
just be different? They're going to play with a five who's more offensively minded. So, are they going to? And so, it's one thing. It's great retaining flexibility, having tons of players. Everybody wants to have lots of players. We need another big guy. We need another this. We need another that. Only 200 minutes.
yeah, yeah.
Only 200 minutes, and you've got to work out what you've got and how they're going to fit together, and that needs games. And now Cheshire's identity, as I say, was formed last year, if
Mm,
not the year before. So, and they just filled kind of pieces around that. So yeah, they got back into it. Ben has the capability of just, sitting down Atwood and saying, no, not for you today.
mm.
I think he must have been going out to Ray's girlfriend. Um, sorry, because he was, it
Yeah.
didn't work. He
I
was,
can't remember what it was. It was like a minus 28 in 11 minutes or
yeah, he
something
just,
like that.
just for whatever reason, just didn't
Yeah.
fit that game. But he has this kind of phalanx of wings, so he can bring in Scott Grayson, who's
Mm,
going to fly around and play even faster.
mm,
He's an even faster version of what they've got. Um, and Austin as well. But the biggest problem was Sheffield stopped scoring.
mm,
It wasn't about their defense. The defense was all right. They bent, they didn't really break.
mm,
They did things they were meant to do, but they stopped scoring the ball. They got a little bit, and that's hard when everything's going well. You're up
mm,
24, you scored 41 points in 13 minutes.
mm,
You're on as a player, you're feeling good about yourself, but it can go very quickly.
mm,
You don't realize that. As a coach, you realize that like hell
mm, mm,
because you're in that mentality again of how do I manage this game?
mm,
And you're constantly trying to get your players to keep their foot down, keep attacking, because that's the only way you're gonna beat Cheshire that way. They're gonna play faster, so you got to score. And I didn't think they did a great job of that. I think Cheshire did pick up their defense a little bit, but I don't think Sheffield attacked as much as they could have kind of in the middle third of the game.
Mm.
And they scored like 41 points in 13 minutes, and then they scored like 20 odd points in the next 20, something like that.
They were still up 9 with 1:30 to go in the third quarter. Knicks got the next 10 points, so they led 68-67. That was their first lead since the opening shot of the game. Let's get to the end, shall we? 1:11 to go. Atwood diving out at Chapman on a three, fouls him.
Yeah, it was
Uh,
interesting because Ben came back with Atwood with about 6 minutes to go. Because at that point he'd been sat down for quite a long time.
Austin asked to come out.
Austin has to come out, did he?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I
Didn't
couldn't work out if he'd hurt himself or if he was just
he?
tired, but
He
Austin.
didn't have to. He didn't have to come back with Atwood. He could have come back with somebody else.
Mm,
But he came back with Atwood, and Atwood wasn't having a great night, and it didn't really. He never got into a rhythm. He
mm,
shot the ball the first time he touched it when he came back in with 6 minutes to
mm.
go. Missed the shot, and as you say, three-shot foul, which was not a great play.
No. Chapman goes 2 for 3, so the scores are tied at 84-84. White at the other end then has a mismatch on Chapman, trying to back him down from a long way out. The double comes from Clay on the opposite side, and between them, they force him to lose the ball out of bounds with 52.6 seconds to go.
Yeah, more evidence of Clay being a relatively smart defensive player. I think.
Mm. Clay inside can't
Slow
convert.
down, just slow down on that.
Yeah.
This play befuddled me. It's a tie game. There's 45 seconds to go. And Cheshire basically put token pressure on Nixon on one side and Chapman on the other side. And neither of them came back to get the ball off Clay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Clay, who's been there a week, who's your five man, with 45 seconds to go in a tie game, dribbles the basketball all the way up the court into the post,
Mm,
right? And your point guard, who's basically been handling the ball, both of them who've been handling the ball much of the time. I think he threw it to Chapman on the way out because it was on the post because nothing else to do. Chapman threw it back to him.
straight back to him, yeah.
And I'm watching this thinking, hang on, it might be the right play, but this guy's been here a week,
Mm,
right? Not only is he directing you, right? You're the point, and this is when I first kind of figured that, Chapman may have mentally slipped in this game. Because if you remember the very first game Chapman played for Sheffield,
yeah, yeah. He
I
got
was
the ball.
talking at the end of the game
Yeah,
about how he came and he got the ball and
yeah,
he was going to make the play and how that dynamic was going to work given what Nixon had done the week before.
yeah, yeah.
Right? But in this game, you've got that five man. Now, there's no way in the world that none of those guards couldn't have come back
Yeah,
to get.
because as you say, dribble from one end of the floor to the other, and from the right side to the left.
Yeah, yeah, they could have come and got the ball off him. He could have held
Mm,
the ball off them. But they, by their actions, basically said to him, "Off you go."
yeah,
Now he did what a basketball player is going to do. He's going to try and make a play. No
yeah,
harm in that.
yeah.
But you're telling me that's what Atiba wanted
Mm,
at that point for both his guards to kind of be uncertain as to whether who was going to have the ball in their hands at the time.
mm.
He doesn't want Chapman in the screen and roll. He doesn't want Nixon coming off. You know what I mean? I always put this way as like a boggle-eyed moment that.
Yeah. So anyway, he missed inside. Cheshire get the rebound. There's about 30 seconds to go. Holden runs some clock. I think he'd been told on the previous play that he didn't attack, so there was no doubt who was going to shoot
He
this
threw the
time.
ball into White in the post, didn't he? That's
Yeah,
kind
yeah.
of a thing. They don't do that very often.
Yeah, yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
So it's making going back to what you are when it matters.
Yeah.
It's a simple game. Give the ball to your best players, let them be what they are.
Yeah, so he drives and hits from just inside the foul line. 9 seconds to go. Cheshire up to 86-84. Timeout, advance the ball. Clay knocks White to the ground. No call. Austin comes to help, blocks the shot. Foul called. What did you make of those two?
Well, the first thing I made of it is they've thrown Clay the ball again.
Mm,
Clay, he's solid. He hasn't shown himself to be a Tony Dorsey like post
mm,
player yet, and they wouldn't even know if he was because he's been there for a week. So my first thought was, well, where's the point guard? Because he's given the ball to Donovan Clay 15 feet from the basket with Skylar White, who's a decent a decent defender in front of him, and saying make a play. Well, that's for me, that's a derogation on all the guys who've been there all season.
Mm,
I don't, I just don't think, maybe the right basketball player, maybe he's the only one who was open, but the ball came in very quickly, and I'm like, whatever. So he tried to make a play. I didn't have a problem with it. I don't think I would have wanted to decide the game on a charge or a block there on
mm,
White. He kind of hit him to the side, but White wasn't moving much either. He hit him on the side, sorry. So
mm,
White wasn't moving much either. So I had no problem with there being a no call at that point. I didn't think it was a blatant charge. I didn't think it was a blatant block. Um, the Austin thing, I don't know. I didn't really see enough of
mm.
it. Uh, the suggestion, whatever it was a good play by Austin, whether he fouled him or not.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
But he's taking away a layup and he's putting clear on the line.
yeah.
My guess was it probably was a good call and that he probably maybe got a bit of the ball and a bit of his wrist because
Mm,
Austin's given up 8 inches to Clay.
mm,
Um, and as I say, having not called the first one, the ref was pretty. It's what I'm talking about with the manner in which calls are made.
mm.
It was a very, very decisive call that was
Yeah,
made.
yeah, yeah.
There was a point there, boom, up there, no doubt. And Austin didn't really kick off about it.
Mm,
It wasn't that kind of
mm.
moment or anything like that. But it's a good play because Clay's not a great foul shooter, and you put him on the line.
Yeah. So he goes to the free throw line. He misses the first. So now I think it looked like he was trying to miss the second on purpose, but it actually went in.
Yeah, he made
Uh,
it.
so it was 86-85. Timeout advanced the ball. A bit of a lob cross court to Scott Grayson
Slow
because they
down
were,
for that. Slow down on that one
yeah,
because there's a bit more bitch befuddlement in this case. They
yeah.
use both timeouts.
Yes, yeah. So he called a timeout, Ben, and he had a discussion with his coaching staff. And then once he'd finished that discussion, he went to the table and said, I want a second timeout so that he had the time to explain what he'd just discussed to the team.
I was surprised by that because I think that, you've got a play to get the ball in bounds. You probably got three or four. And
Mm,
by this point of the season, everybody should know what that play is. The reason I was surprised by it is because it nearly cost them.
mm,
It nearly bit them. Because if Chapman makes that foul shot at the end, they've got a second and no timeout.
yeah.
So I think in future they've got to try and get that done in one timeout.
Mm,
No, it's not. It's basically 5 seconds. Get the ball in bounds. Who do you want in the game? Who's our out of bounds passer? That's the type of thing that they should be in a position that they know from the practice floor.
mm,
It
mm.
shouldn't take two timeouts to get that done.
And they actually there was 4.7 seconds on the clock, and they probably took 4.7 seconds to get the pass in as well,
It was a pass basically to let's throw it to our most athletic guy.
and hope he can outjump whoever's guarding him.
I thought the 1.1 seconds thing was nonsense.
Yeah, I thought that was a bit.
That was absolute nonsense. No way in the world. I mean, literally, there's an argument to say he was actually being fouled before he caught the ball, but the
Mm,
ball was bounced, so it wouldn't have been a one-shot foul.
no,
But the argument to say there was no time off the clock at all,
yeah,
but to say 1.1 seconds, and again, that nearly to say 1.1 seconds, as if you see when you're in such small kind of time spans like that, right?
mm,
It's an impossible job for the timer.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The timer's got to know when to start the clock and stop the clock.
Mm,
Right? You start the clock on the touch of the ball, and you
yeah,
stop the clock on the whistle. Now,
yeah,
so firstly, there's a you're going to have probably variance of zero point 0.3 or zero point 0.4 of a second on
yeah.
cross court
On
pass, like
both, yeah, yeah.
on both.
On both, yeah.
So for me, at that point, it comes down to a referee to say, no, this is how long I think it took.
Yeah.
This is what I'm going to put back on. And it's not an exact science, but to kind of bail out by saying, oh, the timer will have got it right.
Mm.
That's exactly right. When it was a
I think the argument that was being made was that the foul was not on the catch; it was after he landed, after he'd landed. So therefore, that's what that would have taken 1.1 seconds. I think I believe was the argument made.
well, yeah, that would. I'm sorry. He jumps very high then because he caught
Yeah,
it. He comes. Nah, I'm not buying that.
yeah,
Because it was instantaneous. The whistle was instantaneous.
yeah,
So I wasn't impressed with that either. But more than that, it wasn't even the fact that it was the fact that it was just assumed that the timer would be right.
mm,
It's like when there's a zero point 0.4 seconds on the clock, can you get a shot off?
mm,
At the end of the day, it's not about the clock.
mm.
On the inbound, it's about the referee in reality.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
It's
yeah,
different. If the clock is running, that's fine because the clock is running. You can see when it
yeah,
runs.
yeah,
But on the dead ball, where you're having to start it and stop it in that
yeah,
time,
yeah.
as a ref, you've got to know what can be done in certain times and how long things take.
Yeah.
So I wasn't impressed with that, and that nearly made a difference as well
It
because
nearly did, yeah, yeah, yeah. So then Scott Grayson makes the first, misses the second. Sheffield get the rebound. Chapman's away down court. Scott Grayson knocks it away from him. Foul called. Zeros on the clock. They have a conversation. 1.1 seconds goes back on the clock.
yeah, so so the timer was perfect on the previous score, but they were 1.1 seconds off on this score. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes as I say, it's if you gotta put your hand and say, right, this is what it is. I'm right. I don't get you. It's not about the guy on the table. It's not about the guy who's doing the 24-second clock. Ultimately, the best refs that we had in my day, they would make their call and you were stuck with it and you were happy with it because they were making the call on what they
Yeah,
saw,
yeah.
whether it
Were
was
you
right or
were you happy it was a foul, by the way?
yeah, I think I was because I think what happened was I think Scott Grayson initially I think he did get the ball,
Yeah,
but when you watch the camera from behind on the baseline going
yeah.
back, you see a contact with Chapman's maybe his off arm,
Mm,
certainly his left arm, and you see that contact. And the way that and the referees, I'm afraid, I don't think at that point because both of them made the call.
mm,
I don't think can properly differentiate who's got control of the ball at that
mm,
point to say, oh, that was just the kind of the after effects of a good steal.
mm,
I think that was still part of the play, and I think that was still contact. And I think, I'm comfortable. I think if Scott Grayson is dumb enough to use a phrase
mm,
to try and steal the ball at half court with 1 second to go when you're up by two, that is a dumb play. Sorry,
mm,
whichever way you look at it. You play a solid defense, you keep your hands out, you don't let the refs do it. Because if Chapman had been smarter or I'd been quicker and he'd been going up, he'd been
mm,
putting it up at that point in time, that's a foul waiting to happen.
mm, mm,
He's still dribbling at the time, but if Chapman had picked the ball up early and he's already committed,
mm.
reaches in, bang, that's a three-shot foul. You
Yeah,
lose the game on that. So I thought that was an awful decision by Scott Grayson, but Scott Grayson had just missed the foul shot, of course.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
His adrenaline is flowing. He wants to get it back for his
yeah,
team. So
yeah,
there's that
yeah.
risk of a double mistake. And that's what you get with young players.
Mm,
So I was comfortable. I didn't have any problem with them calling that. I put the blame on the player for that, whether he fouled him or not.
mm. Chapman makes the first, misses the second. Holden bats it away and gets the rebound, and Cheshire somehow win the
And
game.
I think the seeds of that were sown in the two plays beforehand,
Mm,
where you go from a situation with a minute to go, and he is your guy, he's your dominant ball handler, he's a dominant possession user, and for two plays in a row, he got nowhere near the ball.
mm,
They threw it to Clay, he threw it back to Chapman, Chapman threw it back to Clay again.
mm,
Then they threw it to Clay, Clay made it. And I just think he's not meant. I think mentally he was struggling at that point.
mm,
I didn't see the decisiveness in his moves, and I didn't see the fact that he didn't get the ball really shocked me because everything I've seen out of him so far suggests that he is an alpha who can make plays at
mm,
the end. It's the first time I've seen him take a backward step um, psychologically, if that makes any sense.
mm,
So we'll see where he bounces back to. He's probably going to come out and drop 40 this week.
mm.
He may well do that, but it was
Well,
just
he was 8 for 10 for 23 in this game, so it's,
yeah, it was just weird that
yeah,
I'm telling you now, if Cheshire are up two on those two possessions, right before the foul shot stuff at the end, right,
mm,
in neither possession does Chapman or Nixon have the ball in their hands.
mm,
Therefore, there's no risk of a screen. There's no rotations they've got to get into in relation to shooters. There's no worry about defending space. You are loving it if you're Cheshire.
mm,
You're not having to make any decisions. You're just having to make a defensive play.
mm,
And I just thought Sheffield kind of took them out of that, and I wasn't. I was just a bit perplexed by it all.
mm.
So they're 2-2, and they're really good.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
you
they are
know,
really good, having seen them
they're
both.
2-2, but they are potentially, they potentially got every piece that they need.
Mm,
But they got to find a way of not being in 50-50 games.
mm. I think it's going to be hard. I think it's going to be
Yeah.
hard not to be in 50-50 games because I don't, they're really good. Cheshire are really good. I think Leicester are really good. We've seen London playing really well.
Yep.
Manchester at some point is going to come together
Yeah.
uh, for them. Newcastle, we talked about already. I think there's going to be a lot of 50-50 games. I'm looking
There
forward
is,
to it.
but
Yeah.
you want to separate yourself.
Mm,
You got to find a way to win games by. 7 or 8 points,
Mm,
by 8 or 9 points to make players at the end. And the biggest thing about that is you have to have your pecking order sorted.
mm,
And at the end of the games, you have to know where you're going. Cheshire went to Holden.
mm,
Holden shot his little 15-footer. It's
mm.
not a great shot, but it's a shot that he's comfortable shooting, going to his right.
And
He
he
knows it's
got
him.
he got a telling off for not shooting it on the previous play.
He
So
got it
that
tearing off.
he knew not only did he have the green light, it was so green that he better bloody shoot it.
Absolutely. And
Mm,
that gives a player confidence because he knows he's not going to be chewed out.
mm,
It was, it was, you would struggle, the very best guys, the guys who've won most frequently, want the ball at the end.
mm, mm,
You want a player who wants the ball at the end. It is the biggest. Who's your closer?
mm.
It's a thing to be a closer. Whether it's, even if it's Drew Sullivan, who might not have shot the ball the whole game,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
Or Trey Moore, who might have shot the
yeah.
ball every time the whole,
It's
right?
true.
Or,
True.
or, or, or Charles, who might have
Yeah,
just,
yeah,
they ain't losing without giving it their shot,
yeah, yeah.
shooting their shot, and that's how you become that repetition. That Michael Jordan quote about all
Mm,
the shots he's missed.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
that's how you become it. So the kind of the truth of the story is in not who missed, but you know who was doing what they were meant to do. That
Mm,
degree of certainty at the end.
mm,
So Sheffield have that to sort out. I think we've got pecking orders on most of the teams now. I
mm,
think, obviously London is going to be Rye's team.
mm,
I don't think there's any doubt about that. Leicester is Jackson's team.
mm.
Newcastle is Akora's team. Um,
Caledonia is Whelan's team.
Caledonia is Whelan's team. Manchester, they're still fighting amongst themselves. I think it
Yeah,
might
yeah.
be Mitchell. Um,
I think it'll be Mitchell.
Surrey, it will either be Gooden or Ray.
Ray, yeah, I'll go.
Gooden or Ray, but the Ray, I'm not sure if Ray's got the kind of the he's still quite a young pro, whether he's got the capability of doing it every single game, but he's a guy he's more of an X factor player, may have to be Gooden's team.
Mm,
Um, who else have we got? We got Bristol, Katie Johnson's team, he's not playing.
yeah,
That's a
yeah,
massive loss.
yeah.
And Sheffield, Chapman's team. But if it's going to be his team, he has to be the one to
Mm,
make the plays at the end. So, we're getting there with that. And it'll be interesting to see how all that kind of stuff plays out and how teams manage, that kind of dynamic as the season goes on and how they keep everybody ready and everybody interested. Again, Jeffries didn't play much in this game. Jeffries is a really good player
mm,
and they're struggling to find shots for him at the moment.
mm.
Um, so I
And
think
that's
Sheffield,
obviously, I know they don't play the position, but in terms of your 200 minutes without Anderson
yeah.
playing at all, and
But
it's
if Coutinho's taking up 25 and Matthews
yeah,
taking up 25 and Chapman and Nixon are taking up those
yeah,
minutes as well,
mm,
I think again in the 30s, then somebody slips out,
yeah,
unfortunately.
yeah. It was much easier for Robbie Pearce with his six players.
Yeah, it was.
Dave
You got
Gardner
that.
just to plug in here or there.
Yeah, it wasn't very good for all their knees about 2 seasons,
No,
was
no,
it?
no.
But it wasn't. They had 6 players, but of course, 5 of them were 6'7" and up.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
McCord, Hamilton, Davis, Cameron, etc. And
yeah,
Cameron was a 6'6" point guard.
yeah,
In reality.
yeah.
Uh, but it was, yeah.
Mm,
And so you've got to kind of manage all that. But now that the schedule is such, and players are such, to be honest, I don't say they are softer, but I think they are more susceptible to minor injuries than they
mm.
were in relation to playing through. We know what happened to Calvin Davis's ankles.
Yeah, yeah,
He,
yeah.
played through a lot of stuff. Um, that you need that bigger squad, but that creates different issues from
Challenges. It's just a
units.
different challenge, isn't it? It's just a different
Absolutely.
challenge. That's the thing. Right. So Kristen 19.6 rebounds, Austin 16.7 assists, Holden 15 points, 9 rebounds, 5 assists, White 15 points and 7 rebounds. Chapman, I said 8 for 10 for 23 points, Nixon 13, Groves and Clay both had 12. And 23, by the way, is the biggest deficit uh, for a team who went on to win a game since we've had biggest leads on the live stats, which is since 2016. It matches what Leicester did last year against Surrey, you may recall, where they were down
Wow.
23 at home.
No,
And they ended up winning by about 12 in the end. So it was a bigger
yeah.
turnaround, but from 23 down.
Oh, I've got a whinge. Can I have a
Go
whinge?
on then.
I do not want to see one more example of a player's backside from the baseline camera while while somebody else is laying the ball into a basket that I can't see anymore
Yeah, yeah,
because I'm looking down the court at somebody's backside.
yeah.
Um,
There was a rather unfortunate one at Bristol where they were on the baseline. It's camera right as you're looking
yeah.
at it, and whoever it was, it Landolfi in the corner was shooting a three, and they cut to that one. And all you could see was the stanchion, and he pump faked and reset, and you just
Yeah.
didn't. You know,
And I don't want to see a close up of somebody's face when they just made a shot when somebody else is possibly committing an unsportsmanlike foul
yeah,
from
yeah,
the Cheshire.
yeah.
And I know it's not easy. I was in the truck last year. I went and have a look. It's not an
Mm,
easy job. They're making it more difficult than they need to.
mm,
There's too many cutaways. If the NBA doesn't do it, we don't need to do it. There are too many live ball cutaways to people in the crowd, to coaches standing at something when the game is in play. We don't need it. We know they're there. If they go
mm,
kicking off and they're shouting something, or if you've got somebody in the crowd who's, going topless or something, yeah, cool, whatever. But if there's something different, but I don't need to see smiley faces. I don't need to see coach standing there looking,
mm,
I want to see what's going on. And so can we have just more of camera one, please?
yeah, yeah.
And put all the good shots together at the end if you can and make a great montage, and I'll think you're brilliant.
It's called a
But
melt at the end.
a melt.
Mm,
Okay, a melt at the end and do that and store them all away. But
yeah.
you've got this wipe thing. I'm even getting irritated by the wipe, which means that after the replay, it takes us another half a second because we've got that SLB
Yeah,
thing
yeah.
up.
You can't
Well,
get rid of wipes, Dave. It's 2024.
but you can get rid of the wipe. You can get rid of it in when the ball is in play. I think you
You
can't get
have
rid
to
of it.
visually show people that we're back to a different thing.
You have
That's
to, yeah. Well, just don't go away from it in the first place. So for those, I mean, to be fair, I'm not the only one. There's been a few similar malcontents on Musk's health site, um, complaining about. No, and by the way, America, you're idiots. Um, idiot. I know I've been out there, I've coached out there, I've run football camps out there. I've been in deep South America and deep Midwest America. I know what they are. I don't know why I'm surprised. But I've coached a soccer camp in Georgia, which wouldn't have a black coach, and that was 1995.
Mm,
So
mm,
expecting a black president 30 years later, so what?
mm,
But in back to the point, um, let's just see the games,
mm,
please.
mm,
So I don't, and that cam, and to be fair, it wasn't even that, even the GB Eurobasket women's game. So I should give a shout out to they won one and they rather threw away another one, I'm afraid. Even the FIBA guy, whoever was the camera on that one, they were doing the same thing, and that was irritating people too. Let's just watch a couple of NBA games. Less is more. You've got the tool, you've got the fancy tools, use them when you need to. Great job. Let me see the game, please.
mm.
Thank you. Rant over.
There we go. And show over, I think, as well. We've
Yeah, I
reached
think
the
so.
end.
Yeah,
It's still too early to bother printing out the league table, people. I'll
yeah,
do
I
it in a
agree.
few weeks. They get to 6 or 7 games, I'll probably start reading out where everybody is, but not for now. We'll call it an evening for a Monday night again. I think it's Monday next week as well, is it? Oh, is it not Cheshire Newcastle next Sunday? I think.
No, it's Glasgow, Newcastle
Oh,
next.
is it Glasgow,
Caledonia,
Newcastle?
Newcastle.
Oh,
Definitely,
God.
because it's the fourth time they've played. I mean, I know
Yeah, we need to see a bit more of a bit
a
more
bit
of
more
that.
of that type of, yeah.
Cheshire London, that's what it is.
Oh, Cheshire, London, that'll be a
That
good
should be
game.
a good one.
Yeah,
That, yeah,
I'll
yeah,
happily go off to the Monday for that one. Yeah,
yeah, yeah,
no problem with that. That will be, that's Aaron Wright coming back, isn't it?
yeah. Indeed,
There'll be a lot of
should.
that. Yeah, that game will be that'll be a flying game. That.
Yeah, it will.
Uh,
So we'll be back next Monday night to review that and everything else that's taking place. But for
but
now, oh,
just
go on.
sorry, just on that, isn't it nice to be saying that'll be a flying game? Looking forward to that after last year
Yes, indeed. Yeah,
when there wasn't many games like that. Really, was
yeah,
there?
yeah, yeah, yeah. It
There
wasn't.
really wasn't, and now there is. So that's great. Yeah.
That is great. So we'll see you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye, guys.